Hey there, everybody. How are we going today? I hope you've all been well and say welcome back to another Prestige Liquids live chat. I hope you've all been well. I'll say just wanted to give a quick hello to everybody in the chat. So we've got Mark Slinger, Jay from Bourbon and the Baby, castmate Matthias, even Chris from the last drop. How are we all doing, gentlemen? I hope you've all been well. Um, yeah, you're saying why the hat? At the moment, it's say winter is finally starting to kick in, and you'll say it's gotten pretty chilly outside at the moment. We're at about say 10 degrees Celsius. Nice icy bite to the air. So yeah, just trying to keep warm. I've even got a nice hot cup of tea going as well. Okay, so how's everybody doing? So we got 5 people currently in the chat at the moment. That's fantastic. That's spring temperature for us. Uh, so I think the one main difference though that we have in Australia is it's the humidity and moisture in the air as well. I know, say, quite a few years ago when my mum's auntie came over from Finland. I mean, they're used to winters of, say, reaching minus 30 and plus. And she actually felt colder here in Australia during our winter time than what she did over in a very hospitable Finnish climate. So yeah, I'll say there's obviously a difference in climate, that's for sure. I'll say today, just wanted to do a little live chat. I don't know how long it's going to go for, but we'll see. We'll take it as long as it goes. Um, as the title mentioned, I just wanted to go on about say what is whiskey worth, and by that I'm also talking about the prices. Yeah, more so to do with the prices of whiskey, what we're willing to pay and what we're not willing to pay, things like that. I guess the unfortunate thing for us, we're all into a hobby that is not considered cheap. Uh, there's there's a lot of expense when it comes to when it comes to whiskeys. So yeah, I mean, as a standard, look, we all have, the majority of us will have our budgets of what we would deem uh, a suitable price to pay for. Uh, yeah, say we all have our own budgets and things like that. Um and say we all, yeah, again, sorry, I'm just rambling on. Um, yeah, I say some people, I say for some people, the sky's the limit. Some people have a bottomless bank account. Others, like myself, do not. So we do try to look out for cheaper options when they're available, or we will try to save a little bit of money to try and get that exclusive whiskey that we've been after. Mate, don't go breaking your TV screen, Matthias. So, Mark, you're asking, is there a cheap country for whiskey? Mate, the way I see it, pretty much anywhere that's not in Australia is considered cheap for me. Um, Recently, I just watched Matthias's video of his, I say, budget whiskies for like whiskeys, say under say $45 and under. Now, in Australia, if you're considering a whiskey at about the $45 mark, you're generally starting off with, say, something like Johnny Walker Black Label at $45 Australian. Uh, To be honest, look, I wouldn't say that is cheap. For me, I would say that's more reasonable more than anything. But due to the prices that we pay here, yeah, that's quite expensive, especially in comparison to the prices that other people in other countries can get. I have also mentioned before in some other videos when people go on about Glenfarclas. Glenfarclas, for some reason, in other countries seems to be considered quite cheap, where in Australia, the 10-year-old goes for about 100 Australian dollars. So um, the prices over here are ridiculous. And yeah, that's right, Matthias. That's basically due to the amount of taxes that we have on the products as well. I mean, there's obviously the importing taxes. Yeah, so importing taxes. Then there's also what we have is the GST, or goods and service tax, which is then put on pretty much for every retailer will have a goods and service tax. And then it depends on what, say, on top of that, then it depends on what the retailer is going to, uh, yeah, that depends on what the retailer is then going to sell the product for. And then that will obviously vary from place to place. The last drop, mate, would you consider that £26 is cheap for say like a bottle of Johnny Walker Black Label, or is that expensive? Um, yeah, I'm not really sure on what the current say on how the currency conversion is from the Australian dollar to pound, but I know it's really bad at the moment. Um, yeah, like for example, uh, I say take this for example. The wild turkey long branch. I would, for what you're getting, I would say that's a pretty decent whiskey. I mean, that you can get if you look around, you can get that for about $55. Uh, then I would say for that particular product, that's a pretty decent price. You can't go wrong with that. I mean, for the quality of that particular whiskey, uh, I would I would definitely be getting that again. Anthony, mate, welcome to the chat. But what are you doing here, mate? You're in Spain. Go enjoy your holiday. Why are you here? uh, Mate, thank you for dropping in, mate. I really appreciate it. Jay, you're saying I've heard Australia taxes more for higher proof. Is that true? Um, to be honest, mate, I'm not 100% sure. Um, I would say that we probably do, but then having said that, um, I've seen, say, we've also got 40% whiskies that are ridiculously expensive. I mean, take Lefroy 10, for example. Lefroy 10 on average in Australia is going for, uh, say going on, if you can get it at let's say a decent price, is considered probably about $90 for Lefroy 10. I mean, I was lucky recently. I was able to get a bottle for, I think it was at $79 Australian. I was able to get it, and that is a bargain um, for Lefroy 10. I mean, I was lucky. I was able to get that from my local Aldi stores. So yeah, that was pretty good. Okay, so yep, even Matthias, you're saying prices are so relative. Glentronic 12 is 45. Bloody hell, that is ridiculously cheap. Glendronic 12 here, I picked up my bottle for about $90. Anthony, mate, just Bring the wife over as well. Maybe let's bring the whole family in. Why not? Then that way you can get in trouble together. uh, yeah. So and then having said that, like I mentioned before, the Lafroig 10 again. That's a 40%. Um, what's this? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the Lafroig 10's 40%. The Long Branch is 40%, and that's almost half the price. So I think it depends on the actual whiskey itself. Um, yeah, so I just can't understand or even get my head around on how the pricing is done. I mean, look, I can understand to a certain degree with some products. I mean, look, take the uh, 10-year-old Lafroig, for example. I mean, that is something that's aged for 10 years. It's taken time to produce. It's not something that you've made your spirit. You've put it into a cask and you've bottled it straight away. It's not, or I should say, maybe it's more. It's not something that you've poured out of a tap. These products take time to make, and I guess a lot of the pricing goes into factoring that. Uh, Good morning, Alan. How are you? Welcome to the chat. As I've mentioned to the guys earlier on, today's live feed is pretty much about the pricing of whiskies and what we're willing to pay, and whether we consider the prices to be worth it. Yeah. Now, say the Lafroig 10. I keep using the Lafroig 10 as an example. Look, that is one of my favorite whiskies by far. And to pay 90 to almost $100 for it, do I think that it's worth it? To be honest, no. Um, okay, Anthony, mate, please go and enjoy the rest of your trip. Uh, and so yeah, again, mate, thank you for joining in. It's good to see you here. Um, yeah, and as I mentioned, see, that is one of my favorite whiskies. And to be honest, I am currently refusing to pay that much for the bottle of Lafroig 10. I mean, I'll finish off a bottle and then I'm literally waiting months for it to come back into one of the, say, like a shop like Aldi, for example, where I know that the price is going to be, say, $20 to $30 less than what is considered the cheaper price. Um, yeah, it's a lot of money to spend. Other whiskies as well, for example, Johnny Walker Blue Label. To me, that's probably one of the most, I shouldn't say overrated. Johnny Walker Blue Label is a nice whiskey, but is it overpriced? Definitely. I picked up my first ever bottle of what's it called? The Johnny Walker Blue Label from Duty Free. The one about 6 years ago or so when I went to America. I think I paid at the time about $170 for it. That's Australian. And at the time, I thought that I was getting a really good price. But when I came back to Australia and I had a look at one of my like local liquor stores, it was actually cheaper here than what it was in duty free, but still, I would still consider it quite expensive. I mean, it goes for about $150. Let's see. Mark Slinger, you're saying yes, but wages are higher in Australia. Look, in consideration to some other countries, yes, our wages are a bit higher, but at the same time, they don't really balance out to what things cost. I mean, the cost of living in Australia at the moment, especially in Sydney, is quite high. Sydney at the moment I think it's actually ranking up in the top 5 of most expensive cities to to live in, and that's including property prices. I'll say petrol prices, food. Obviously, there are places that are slightly more expensive, but yeah, we're definitely up there. Actually, one thing that I remember, that one of the taxes that we have, I think, on whiskey is also like a luxury item tax. So, man, we get taxed for everything over here. It's absolutely ridiculous. I think I've spoken to some people in Canada, and I believe that they also have some similar taxes as well. Some of the prices that the Canadians pay for whiskeys are quite ridiculous as well. So you've been working in Perth. Look, that also depends on what you're doing. I'm assuming by working in Perth, look, mate, I know recently in Western Australia there was a big mining boom. And that probably factors that in. There was a lot of decent money to be made working in the mines, but not everybody is working in those types of industries. You got to consider that the majority of people are still working in say basic jobs like retail and things like that are the more lower income. But yeah. Going back to other things that would factor into higher prices of whiskey, I guess you got to look at availability. That's a big issue as well. Some products only make a limited run. I mean, take for example, I got here a bottle of. Unfortunately, you can't see it very well, but that's the bottle of the Lagavulin 9-year-old, the Game of Thrones. The Game of Thrones edition, which, hey, let's pour us a dram. Now, this is going to be one of those. I can't remember the exact price of what I paid for this. I think, from memory, it was about the $100 mark, which again is expensive. And if you were to ask, do you think that it's worth the price? Again, I'm going to say no. Don't get me wrong. I think that the Lagavulin 9 I think it's a fantastic dram. It is a very nice whiskey, but again, that's a lot of money to pay. I mean, obviously, there's so many other special edition releases of whiskies out there that the prices can be mind-boggling. I mean, I remember I was watching one of the videos of I think was it Scotch for Dummies, and I think they recently opened this new special edition Macallan. Man, the price, I think they paid about $3,000 American for that. Man, that is an insane price. But again, having said that, it is a special edition release. I can't remember how old it was, but yeah, the craftsmanship that's actually gone into making the bottle and the box and things like that. I mean, those are all extra things that you're paying for. But again, a lot of money to spend. I guess and it always boils down to this. I mean, if you've got the money, then by all means, go for it. I mean, I know if I could afford it, hey, I would pay that. I mean, if I had, say, $3,000 pocket change to be able to go and buy, say, something like that Macallan, for example, then I'd be here. You know what? Here, take my money and let's give it a try. But unfortunately, at the moment, I am not in a position where I can do that. So I need to look for the slightly cheaper things. I'm just going to have a look at the chat for a moment. Matthias, you're saying availability is a huge factor. That's why rare whiskies are expensive, of course. The Danish whiskies I've been reviewing are expensive compared to what you can buy for the money of well-aged whiskies. Mate, that is pretty much exactly the same in Australia as well. Oh, we've got a new person in the group as well, a Whiskey Journey. How are you, mate? Welcome to the chat. Yeah, so it's nice to see new faces here. And I say, going back to your comment, Matthias, that's something I've noticed with the Australian craft industry as well. There's one distillery I haven't had. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to go and visit them yet. Hopefully, I will. But again, I was having a look online at their prices, and again, they do only very limited runs. They're again only a very small craft distillery, so I'm sure they're only able to produce a certain amount of bottles each with each run that they do. I know they make I shouldn't say they make, they grow their own barley on site. Obviously, they distill on site. They're using all local products. Um, so again, all that would be factoring into their price range. But even they are selling, I think was it say 50 cl or 500 milliliter bottles, and those are averaging, say, from a minimum of $100 ranging to 150, for example. Chris, the last drop, you're asking how do Oz whiskies compare to price wise? Mate, Australian whiskies are very